Hello everybody, here we are today and we're talking about another player profile, today being Will Smith, and he is quite possibly the first American that's going to get drafted in this year's upcoming draft. But before we start talking about him, please make sure to subscribe to my channel if you're new to me, and if not, no big deal. Now let's get into it. So, Smith is a guy that has a lot of offensive potential and has had a lot of success in the USA's development program. Recently has been able to break records for various things that were set by guys like Austin Matthews, Jack Hughes, so he is viewed as one of those offensive players that is raising eyebrows considering who those records are that he's been able to break. Recently we saw Smith have a pretty good run in the USHL, and juniors he had a pretty good run too. He had like something like 20 points in 9 or 10 games and is one of those guys that I think in the coming years, especially if his offensive game develops as people are expecting him to, the name is going to be super recognizable. What are his pros? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is he is really flashy when it comes to handling the puck. He is a guy that looks like he could very well be one of the more entertaining players in the league right now going into the future if he ends up panning out. Right now, I think the big thing for him is he's going to work on the offensive game to be his biggest asset. I don't exactly know how defense is going to work for him, but his biggest pro right now is probably the fact that, like Mishkov, he's able to do some things that maybe other people can't. And I think a big thing that helps him out here, he has the ability to freeze up the opposition. They're not really sure what he's going to do. You'll see moments in games he's going to be out there on the ice and just seems like the team, the opposition that he's going up against, really has no clue what's going to happen. So they try to figure out exactly what's going to happen, and it seems like he has the IQ to be able to do the opposite of that and ends up being a positive for his team. And another pro is he is such a good offensive player in a lot of people's eyes that he is viewed as one of those guys that could be a franchise player and very well could sell merchandise super well and be one of those guys that you have to have his jersey, and you have to be able to go there to watch him with your own eyes. What are some cons to his game? Well, kind of like I said earlier, he's a really flashy player. But as you can imagine, when you try to get cute, sometimes bad things happen. It's kind of one of those situations where it's a little bit opposite of what Leo Carlsson does. Carlsson does end up trying to, be a good puck handler, and he tries to score goals in kind of creative ways. But when it comes to passing, I think that he's a little bit more simple, where he wants to be able to just get it to his teammates. Whereas I think Smith is a little bit more focused on creating that wow factor and being able to make something happen out of nothing, which could end up being a bad thing. I've seen some other things. Elite Prospects kind of talked about that in a video breakdown they did, so if you want to check out their channel, they did a great recap or a profile of him. And another thing that I saw too that was a metric is he really struggled to get the puck out of his own end, was not very good at getting controlled exits out of their defensive end. In the NHL, that could be a problem. The team that drafts him might have to rely on somebody else to carry the puck out, and that could be something to watch for because, again, if he tries to get flashy and he can't get the puck out of their end, what does it turn into? Montreal probably knows this pretty well because I think that they were one of the teams that had the most defensive giveaways in their own end this year. That lends to goals in your own end, and that's the last thing you need. But another thing is, too, he doesn't measure very well defensively, and that's kind of like Mishkov. I looked at some metrics that he ended up having. Seems like he wants to focus on the offensive game. Not uncommon to see with some of these guys that are going higher in the draft this year, and for some teams maybe they're going to have to shy away from him because they're afraid that he's not going to put in the effort. I don't exactly know if it's an effort thing, but I do think that he wants to have his brand be known for playing this really fun hockey, and so far so good in that sense. But again, sometimes it comes down to doing the simple things right, and you have to watch out for that. What are some teams that want him? Well, I think there are a lot of teams that want him, and I would imagine he's going to be taken, in that 4th to 5th range, but I don't know. It seems like some people have him going right about 4th overall this year, and other people have him sliding a bit. Kind of like what I said with Mishkov, I don't see him falling out of the top 10, and honestly, if he went past like 7, I would be pretty surprised, but we will have to see because, again, kind of seems like guys are saying, well, he did seem like a more probable guy for the 4th overall pick, but as we get closer and closer to the draft, I also see more and more draft boards where he has slid down a little bit. So I don't know, San Jose, it's kind of the big question mark here, what they're going to do with pick 4. Montreal, they want to move up in the draft, so that kind of makes things interesting there. So it really is one of those things where I have no idea where he's going to get drafted, but definitely in the top 10 in my opinion. What is a player comparison for him? Right now, the NHL has listed him as a guy like Troy Terry. I'll say this, Terry had a really good year, not last year, but I think the year before that was when he had almost 40 goals. So if you can get the goal scoring like you had from Terry that one season and then get more offensive production, which a lot of people are saying Smith could be a guy that really is able to get a lot of points in the upcoming draft. I'll end up leaving this by The Athletic. I'll put it up on the screen here, is what one of the Athletic writers had to say about him. They really view him as a guy that could be one of the best point producers in the draft this year, up there with guys like Bedard. So that is something that we will see and something that could very well come true, because it seems like the offensive game could transition well to the NHL level. Overall, here's my thoughts on Smith. He is a guy that really could be one of those top 4 picks this year, but I do think he could slip a little bit. It does seem to be that he has his heart set on playing for Boston College next year, which means he wouldn't be playing for an NHL team till the 2024-25 season. And another thing is, too, he also seems to be the guy passionate enough that maybe he ends up playing more than one season at Boston College. I don't exactly know if he will actually do that, but some teams might shy away from that because, again, maybe he is going to be a guy that they have to wait on a little bit and they feel like there's other players that they could go on and pick a little bit higher up in the draft. He is one of those guys that make you say, well, when you watch him play, but at the same time, it could be for a good reason or a bad reason. I really don't exactly know what his game is going to look like at the pro level. The offensive game will be there, but you do have to wonder what the learning curve is going to be like early on. Again, a lot of these guys, it is pretty common to say that, but he does have the potential to be a key offensive player for a team in the coming years. And he's kind of one of those guys that could end up on highlight reels regularly for the NHL, which is a good thing for us. And ultimately, I will say he's probably got a really good chance at being the top American draft this year. Bedard obviously is going to be the first pick. You've got Fantilli that'll be taken second, but it is interesting to see what's going to happen here as the draft pans out, kind of see what San Jose does, because I think that'll change a lot of things in this draft. But anyway, what are your thoughts on the upcoming draft? Where do you think that Smith will go? Who do you think he'll play for? Will he play just 1 year at Boston College? How will all that go? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go off hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.